Thank you very much for an excellent presentation and discussion. Dr. Moeller, may I just ask you, I notice, of course, the most commonly used word in this discussion is Asia, and I see that is the only word in the title of your book that you have had in red. Now, I know that I'm sticking my neck out because I'm amongst a lot of experts here, academics, diplomats, economists, but may I say that I still have problems with the word Asia because I think it is a term that is imposed on Asians rather than created by them, ourselves. As an Asian, I'm speaking. I think Mr. Rogers made an excellent point that Iranians and Japanese, what can they have in common? How can Singaporeans and, say, Mongolians have a common worldview? Now, well, I'm not contesting the use of the word Asia, but it seems to me that if Asia is going to shape the world, such a diverse region, historically, geographically, economically, we don't have a common identity. It's not that we don't have a common, we just, I think, I don't see how we can even develop a common institutional framework within a reasonable period of time like Europe can. So my point or my question is this. Seeing that Asia is so diverse and likely to stay diverse, you have talked about a common response. I think the common response must arise from cooperation and an agreement to be diverse, rather than uniformity or homogeneity. Perhaps you could comment on that? I know you're, well, in fact, Minister Giorgio said that you're a supporter of diversity, and I know you're also a supporter of biodiversity. So do you see that Asia's response, if it's successful in coping with an era of scarcity, would be a diverse but cooperative response? Perhaps you could comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaming. We have 15 minutes left. Let me take a few questions, and then I hope that panelists will take notes of the questions. I see the Ambassador of Brazil would like to ask a question. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Kishore. Well, this morning I didn't hear so much the concept of global interdependence being mentioned this morning over here. If I was to write an essay, I would rather rephrase it. Asia plus the emerging economies can reshape the world. Mind you, if it were not for the emerging economies, China would not be in the wealthy position they are now. They are very much dependent on Brazilian minerals, iron ore for that matter, oil from the Middle East, oil from Venezuela, all the minerals from South Africa. Why the Chinese are desperately investing in Africa, isn't it? So I think you are forgetting the other side of the world, the other 50% of the population who are enormous consumers of products from China, technology from China or otherwise. So let's not, as the lady mentioned, be overemphasizing what's written in red, the biggest consumer nowadays, but there are other consumers which are reshaping the world too. So I would appreciate if the panel could dedicate 3 to 1 minute to the concept that was not much mentioned this morning: global interdependence, global governance for that matter. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a question here? Please come to the mic if you don't mind. Any more questions? If there are no more questions, I'll go to the panel after this.
Hello, my name is Charles, third-year ISMU student. Thank you for all coming to ISMU today. And basically, the first point is actually I think for all the superpowers in the history, right? They all built their own backyards. Look at Britain and France, they have their backyards in Africa. Look at Russia, they have their backyards in Central Asia, America, South America. And then do you guys think actually Southeast Asia is going to be the backyard of India and China? After all, Southeast Asia is a region that was heavily influenced by Indian civilization, Hinduism, and then the huge, enormous influx of the Chinese population. One of the panel members just said that Asia countries, India and China, usually develop by integration rather than expansion. I strongly agree with that. So do you think that in the future there's a Sino-Indian conflict in the integration of Southeast Asia? And if there is, what's Singapore's position on that? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rod, you have a question, please? Go ahead. Any more questions after Rod? Come to the mic, Rod, if you don't mind. Any more questions? I'll make sure don't deny. Okay, then I'll take that as the last question, then I'll come back to the panel. Yeah,
thanks, Kishore. I'd like to add to some of the concerns that have been raised here by Tommy in the first place, but by the other questioners and the panel themselves. And this is the matter of the perception of rising or widening or gaps between the haves and the have-nots, the inequality. My question is this inequality real? And the second is, what impact does this perception of inequality have on the global economy and indeed in global politics? Thank you.
One last question. Go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity, sir. It's one of the most exciting mornings of my week.
Are you a student here?
Yes.
Great. I'm glad we've raised the level of excitement in SMU.
There's been a lot of focus today on the economic aspects of the revolution that perhaps you're talking about. But from a personal perspective, I would like to question perhaps the intellectual aspects of this revolution. Because if you look back in history, there always seem to be leading thinkers and leading ideologies that led to certain movements, as we say, on economic and political aspects, which I don't see happening in Asia right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. As a cohesive force that creates identity or creates some sort of level of understanding. So could you please comment on that and say how important would a strong intellectual sort of environment in this Asian aspect would be to this revolution? Or would it be a new one, or would it be a reversal to our philosophies of the past? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Why don't we go in the reverse order this time? Okay, we start with you, Rajiv, and we'll give Jan the last of the 4 minutes.
I'll just make a few comments because of time. I won't answer all of the questions. I'll just pick a couple.
Don't answer all.
Right.
Everyone answers all, we won't have time.
Firstly, in terms of ASEAN as a backyard for China and India, I think, of course, it's a very relevant factor that, you've got these two huge emerging economic powers which are going to be very influential in ASEAN. So there's no doubt that, in terms of investment flows and trade flows, we're already seeing that there's a very big impact of both China and increasingly of India in ASEAN. But I think that's a positive. It's creating opportunity. It's creating, bilateral trade. It's creating jobs. So I don't see it in any way as a negative thing at the moment in the way it's emerging. The other question that was raised about inequality, I think this is very, very crucial question. When we see what's happening in the Middle East, we can see that even in Egypt, where people perceived that there was economic reform, there was relatively, sustained economic growth. Nevertheless, there were fundamental inequalities that have come to the surface. So we have to, again, look at Asia and see, are there societies in Asia with their vulnerabilities and threats? And clearly there are. I mean, if you look at a number of populous countries in Asia, we see similar vulnerabilities that could emerge in the future. I mean, it's not exactly like the Middle East, but nevertheless, there's certainly big concerns that are major policy concerns right now. So I think, those would be my couple of comments to some of the questions.
Well, I'm delighted to hear that so many people think there's going to be peace in the world. There's never been peace in the world for thousands of years, so unless mankind has changed, and we never have, we're not going to have peace. Right now, for instance, China's going around the world wisely, in my view, buying up a lot of natural resources, whether it's in Brazil or Africa or Central Asia. They see what I think I see, shortages of everything developing, and they're wisely going around and buying them up. What's going to happen in 10 years when somebody, an American politician, stands up and says, How did China get all the oil? How did China get all the wheat? You really think that that's going to lead to peace? You see what's happening now in Egypt and Tunisia and around the world with the price of food going higher. Let me warn you, prices of food are going to go much, much, much higher and stay much higher. And that's going to lead to more social unrest. That's going to lead more governments falling around the world and more turmoil. Let's use the word turmoil. We're going to have more currency turmoil. The debtors are in the West. The creditors are in the East. There's a very, very serious world that we're about to face in the next 10 years. And I don't see us all, again, I hope Jan is right. We all say we're going to be nuns and monks and poets and philosophers. The world has never worked that way.
So you can see he's cheering us up.
I want to focus on Asia. When you look at Asia, you see two problems, actually two sides of the same coin. The Asians look inward and say, we're not the same, we're so different. But from the outsiders, you look at Asia, Asia is not big enough. We were part of Asia. You know, Australians, like Brazilians, Asia should expand. So, but the same thing. But I always believe that our world is so beautiful because we're all different from each other. Diversity is a fact, is a reality. So therefore, and how we can avoid all the troubles, I think we human beings have found something very wonderful, that is behavior code. We all follow the same rule of law, right? The laws. So if we can identify ourselves with the same set of behavior codes, we call laws, then we find a solution. So that's why I think we human beings going towards a kind of world we need global governance, what the global governance based on rule of law. And that's where the hope is. But the problem is that, you know, it is very difficult to make everybody feel the same. And another thing about leading ideology, I don't think it's an ideology. I think rule of law is good. And finally, I have two issues. One, the backyard. I think backyard is a concept that developed in the old days. Your backyard means control. This is a place I control. You cannot get in. That's my backyard. I do not believe Southeast Asia will become anybody's backyard as long as it maintains open and inclusive and to everyone. So everybody can come here to business or whatever. And that is, last but not least, one thing about equality. Yes, we are in a very unprecedented situation with never before. That's where the danger is. To put it simply, that the rich people have debt and poor people have money. We never have this situation before. That caused a lot of problems.